Lollipop by Lil Wayne. I lick you like a lollipop. And like at the time, I never thought about what we were licking. Like,
I'm Haley Griswold.
and I'm Jake Deaton.
And this is The Lost Lore. You never told me that.
Hi, Haley.
Hello, Jacob.
Welcome back to The Lost Lore. This is the show where two best friends basically go over all the things that we've never talked about, all the sleepovers we missed, all of the big life events, all of the pop culture phenomena.
So we figured that for today's episode, in the spirit of missed sleepovers, it's important that we get back to basics and get talking about sex. Specifically, like the birds and the bees, how you found out about sex. Because we're both Southern people. We both had really sheltered childhoods, but we have very different experiences. And I don't actually know anything about kind of how you, like I know how you are now, but I don't know how this developed. So do you care to share with me how you found out the facts of life?
So my parents vacillated from this like very, very sheltering, like you can't listen to a swear word in a song, to being like weirdly frank about some other aspects of life. Like I remember when I was probably like 5 or 6, I asked them where babies came from, which I think is like a normal, I would say that's developmentally appropriate of like,
Sure.
And my parents literally, they're both librarians, and they brought home a video from the library about pregnancy. And so, I feel like that's pretty responsible for two evangelical Christian parents. And
Sure.
The video went through the 9 months of pregnancy. It showed like clips of a fetus developing and like, talking about, this is when it gets fingernails. And it wasn't a Christian propaganda video. It was like very scientific. It wasn't like anti-choice. But at the end of the video, it's following a person. It's following like a woman who's pregnant. At the end of the video, she gave birth and they filmed it. Like spread eagle, like child crowning.
You're how old?
I'm like 5 or 6.
Watching this?
Watching a woman give birth with my
God.
parents and my brother, like all of us just watching. And I remember
This was like your America's Funniest Home Videos.
They
Let's
should've-
all sit down and we're going to watch a baby be born.
the miracle of
A
laugh.
miracle.
But I remember just asking, why is there hair? And and my mom, she was like, that's the baby, sweetie. And I was like, I see the baby. I see the head, but what the other?
The hair around the baby.
And then that was a step too far for them. Like when I grew a pube, that was a complete surprise.
They were like, we don't know. We don't know what's going on there. So I was really sheltered and like did not want to know anything about sex. Like it just felt like, even I think we talked about this once, that the show Sex and the City, I couldn't even like, I was so scandalized. When you're a kid and words with X are so rare, and then sex is such a big one, like it just feels so foreign. Sex. Like it just, you know what I mean? It's just disgusting. So when do you think you like really knew how it works? Like, because you knew how baby, like you saw how the baby was born, but how did the baby get there?
That's a good question, because that didn't come up. After I saw the pubic hair, I was like, I'm good for a couple of years. No further questions. But I remember, I have another vivid memory of sitting with my dad in a hot tub and with my older brother. And it was the three of us. And my older brother and I were really close in age. We're 13 months apart. So we got everything together. And so they kind of calibrated the milestones to his age. And so I felt like I was always kind of on the inside club, like getting the older kids' news.
The scoop, yeah.
And we were in the hot tub, and my dad like literally gave us the birds and the bees talk. He was like, I'm going to tell you, how you make a baby, like the very mechanical, like, except he didn't use the anatomy terms. In my house, I don't think I knew the word penis until middle school.
This is so funny. Okay, so babysitting, in college I babysat while we were at NYU, like nightly. This was what I was doing. And the difference between what we would call it, where we're from, it's like, I still, in polite company, refer to my privates as my raisin. I don't, they're raisin, coochie cooter, those are the words, right?
P-Tom,
P-Tom
pee-pee.
is the one, I learned that one from you.
I call my sons when I'm changing him, I'm like, you're P-Tom. Like, the fact that these people up north are looking at a 2-year-old being like, all right, now time to wash your penis.
was babysitting. Like, I remember the youngest girl was still in diapers and would be like, my vagina, my brother has a penis.
That's when I know that I'm from the South, because I'm like,
Scandalized.
Like, you
when
can't
I
say
heard her
that.
say that, I was like 19 years old being like, this, like, I felt like she was more advanced than me at 3.
And it's like, it's better, I think. Like,
Yeah.
it's a good thing that they, are not shying away from this stuff. Because
Know your body.
so much for us, I feel like sex has this connotation of shame and like secrecy and like, like a taboo subject, where I think that it shouldn't. Like, I hope that I can raise my son in a more liberated way. But I remember my dad giving us this very anatomical discussion using the words like, the P-tom will stand up.
Did he make it sound fun?
He said it was fun.
Oh.
I remember he was like, it feels great. It feels so good, but you gotta wait. You gotta wait until marriage. And I was like, do you? Because he literally would be like, it's the best feeling. It was such an interesting juxtaposition of like my parents' religious background versus how they kind of addressed it with us, which I really give them a lot of credit for being really upfront with us. It kind of reminds me, you know how like some Christians are really into Halloween?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there are these things that you're not supposed to be into as a Christian, and they kind of find ways around it. Like when you get those youth pastors who are like, it's a sin to have sex before marriage. If you're married, fuck her from behind. Like, if you're married, get freaky. All bets are off.
Let me tell you a thing or two about fucking when you're married.
And it's so funny, and like they're talking like 9-year-olds. He's like, my wife every night. Boom, boom, boom. Like, and it's just,
what
and I'm like, aren't we supposed
like, to my parents' credit, they were really good. This is the church you're going to? Oh, wow.
But what about you? When did you learn like the anatomy?
It was 6th grade. We had science class, and I just remember reading the word sperm, and kind of like sex, I got a chill. I was like, this seems like a word that my mom wouldn't want me to read. So the first thing I did, I brought it to my mom. She cried. She was hysterical. Mind you, I'd gotten my period a year before, and she was like, oh, you can have a baby. And that was it. No other information. Like, I didn't know why I was getting my period. You're walking through life
being like, any moment.
Actually, what happened was I got my period in 5th grade, very young. And then for 9 months, nothing happened. And so for 9 months, I was like, I kind of knew I was like a big deal, probably. I didn't know the Jesus thing was happening to me. Like, it really did sort of feel like immaculate conception.
Well, did you ever think like kissing or something? Like, I remember when I was really young, I was like, oh, that's how it happens. Like,
oh, yeah. I was like, I'm going to be Kate +8. I'm going to be pregnant as fuck. I cannot kiss. I can't kiss. I'll be so pregnant. So, yeah, I definitely had the panic about that, too. Yeah.
It's so funny. No,
go ahead. So it was science class where I really learned about it. And even then, it was not even what your dad said. It was very, like, the opposite. It was anatomical, these words being used.
That basically mean nothing.
That mean nothing.
You're
like,
okay.
what does sperm and egg mean to me? It means nothing.
I'm impressed that you did at least have like anatomical sex ed in Florida public schools. Like,
yeah, that's true.
I didn't really have formal sex ed. We did have the section in the science book, I think in 6th or 7th grade, where it kind of talks about your body parts. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had a really strict science teacher that year. He was like this burly, manly guy. And I think he coached football too. But he was a real hard ass. And he was like, we're going to read these paragraphs out loud and no one's going to laugh. No one's going to laugh. And if you laugh, you're going to get in-school suspension. And so we're all nervous, like kind of on the edge of our seats. And like, this is, it's sex. It's like a really taboo topic, especially in this like really religious town.
Yeah.
And there was this kid in my class, bless his heart. I won't repeat his name, but he talk about sheltered. Like, this would be someone who's one of those people who's like, time to kiss on our wedding day.
Oh, wow.
We left room for Jesus. He was really sheltered. And we did all popcorn reading, the section on sex. And I remember so vividly, he got such a juicy paragraph, but he never heard any of the words before. And so he was reading about like genitals, and it was a paragraph about STIs. He was like, and then your genitals will develop warts when you have gonorrhea. And mind you, the teacher's like, laugh and ISS. And I'm sitting there like like 7th grade, listening to this kid say initials, vagina, like literally like choking back laughter, like, and the teacher's like looking out like a hawk.
There is no greater laugh in the world than when you're not supposed to.
Oh my God.
But add sex on top of it, and it's like,
over.
oh my God. I was really close to my grandmother growing up, and she was always like, hey, by the way, my name's Haley. Two syllables, super simple. Why do we have to shorten it to hey? But we do. So she's like, hey, I just wanted to tell you, sex, it only lasts 2 minutes, and it's only fun for the guy. So sad, right?
Oh my God.
Like, I'm like, wow, you've had horrible sexual experiences. Like, if only fun for the guy. Then, when I was a senior in high school, later she told me about all the stuff she did with her best friend Susan. So I know she had some positive female experiences.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
good for her.
Yeah, so she was like, kind of like, if you're gonna do it gay.
Do it gay, girl. Was that the first time you learned about like the fact that 2 people of the same sex could have sex?
Probably.
Because I feel like that's a whole different ball game. Like, I remember when I learned that gay people could have sex, I was like, oh, I want that one.
Yeah. I choose that.
Do you remember when you learned about porn?
Yes, I do. I was probably about 15 when I developed my porn addiction. Was that the question? No, honestly, 50 Shades of Grey was whenever I really,
that's actually
I really
so
was
true.
like looking up what is a flogger. It's only X-rated sites that come up. You know what I mean? And you have to see how it's used. And so
yeah, just like, you had a curious mind.
Right, of course.
That was tied so closely with my like kind of discovery of sex and like and understanding it, where I would look up very clinical stuff, but it would like I would look up the Wikipedia article for penis, and I remember I had that on my iPod Touch one night, and my mom came in and realized I was on my iPod, and she was like, "Give me the iPod," and I was like, "No!" Like, I'll go to sleep. Like, I didn't want her to see what I was looking up. I was like, "I'll be good." Like, don't take it. And she didn't, thank God. But I remember phrasing a lot of questions in a way that, like, when I wanted to look up something a little naughtier, I remember I would try to phrase it in a way that I could pass off being like, I'm just curious about puberty. Like, I just want to know what's going to happen to my body. Like, when I'm trying to find naked men.
Always had, like, some weird level of anxiety of, like, how can I get away with doing something I'm not supposed to do?
What's my story?
What's my story for how this was actually really educational and beneficial to my life?
I used to go into my iPod Touch, and there's a setting, I don't know if it's still there, where you could erase all network settings, which I don't even, that probably just means, like, you forget the Wi-Fi passwords. But at the time, I was like, oh, that's a more thorough way to, I would clear my browsing history, and then I would go hit that. Yes. And I would have to go manually input the Wi-Fi password. I still remember, talk about porn addiction, YB3CKDHH0DOO. That was my Wi-Fi password when I was 13. Because I reset those settings so much.
That is so funny.
But I was not leaving a trail.
No, of course not.
I was looking up naked men, but in ways that I was like, no, I'm just curious. Like, but I want to know what my body will look like when I'm older.
I used to... The Wi-Fi thing scared me so badly. Like, I thought it was almost like a call history where whatever you looked up, it would like
anyone
show up. So I was always hooking up to the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Because
smart.
I was like, oh, if anyone comes over here, I'm going to be like, who's
you hear them
watching
fighting.
what at
Harold, you're a freak!
Like, teen. I'm just joking.
Oh my God.
Just joking.
Oh my God, that's funny.
But actually, I completely forgot about this. When you asked when I discovered that 2 people do it, this is a crazy story that I cannot believe I've never told you. So when I was 16, I was watching this woman's kid, and she was a woman who worked with my mom. She was younger, like in her early 20s, and she had a baby. I was really excited to do it because I was driving to her house, and I was going to stay the night and then drive myself in the morning, like really big, huge deal for me. She was going out on a date. And I was like a young 16-year-old girl, so I remember hyping her up before and being like, you look so good, like, go get him, Tiger. And I did not know till moments before she was leaving that she was going out with her best friend's brother. And her best friend is her roommate.
Did she know?
No, the roommate was not there. That was why I was
You were
watching the
babysitting,
kid.
yeah.
It was like a house, and so she was like, "You can just sleep in my bed, and like if the baby's struggling to sleep, he can just sleep in the bed with you." Like this was obviously before the term co-sleeping was a thing. Like, is that what it's even called?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember this baby was like an inconsolable child. I'm 16. I'm in over my head. I'm like, how did my fucking mom do this? Like, I am never gonna have a child. I'm never having sex. Whatever. Finally, he goes to sleep. We fall asleep in the mom's bed. It's the middle of the night. I hear her come in around 1 a.m, bumbling in, and then I hear a man's voice. And I'm like, I'm probably going to be leaving. Like, I'll just drive in the middle of the night.
You weren't leaving.
It is what it is. I hear she is drunk. And she's like, baby, you don't even want me. You don't even want me. You don't even want this. And he's like, of course I want it. I want it so bad. They're like going back and forth, going back and forth. The next thing I know, the door to the bedroom that I'm sleeping in
With the baby
opens up. I'm like pretending to be asleep. These two fuckers fall into the bed on top of me. I'm laying like still as I can possibly be. They are fucking on top of me.
Haley!
And then the woman goes, oh my God, the babysitter. We're fucking on top of the babysitter. So then they get off of me. I just like roll over, pretend like I'm a really deep sleeper. They leave. They make it outside of the door, close the door, not even all the way. They're so drunk they can't even close it all the way. It's like cracked open. They make it to the floor of the hallway outside the door, and they start having sex right there on the floor. And I'll never forget, she was screaming, this is the best sex ever. Fuck. Everything loud as can be. And then they fall asleep in the hallway, and in the fucking morning when I leave, I have to like tiptoe around these two naked bodies to go home. And then she didn't pay me. On top of that, she did not pay me.
Oh my God.
And my mom was like, oh, I'm so gonna tell. I'm getting her when I go to work. And she, long story short, I did get paid eventually. Isn't that crazy?
Insane. That's like one of the craziest stories I've
Isn't
ever
that insane?
heard. I don't think I've ever inadvertently in my whole life, which is crazy, seen or like accidentally seen someone else having sex.
And this is pre me ever.
That is crazy.
Even, I think at that point, my most physical contact or thing that had ever happened was like I kissed my best friend on stage during a play when we're acting like 10-year-olds. Like,
that is so nuts.
Isn't it?
Oh my God.
Isn't it?
At 16, that is so
And you want me to
crazy.
tell you something? It seemed to last 2 minutes. And I think
Nana
it was
right.
only
Nana
fun for the guy.
Right. Oh my God. That is crazy.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah.
That is, I can't even imagine how I would have reacted in high school.
Yeah.
Jake would have been beating off maliciously.
I think I have this idea of myself as this like really innocent young kid, which I think compared to people from other places, I still think that's true. And like I had this like very sheltered background. But because my parents were a little more with it, you know, I was allowed to watch Pokemon. Most of my friends were not because it has evolution. But,
wow.
I mean, it was that level.
See, I didn't watch Pokemon. I wasn't allowed to watch Pokemon. Because
it was lame.
My mom was like, you'll be a loser. Anyway.
I have this idea of myself in my childhood as this like really naive, like sheltered kid. And I was. But in the context of where I grew up, I actually think I was the naughty kid telling people like about sex.
I know that that's who you were. I know.
Well, I did some bad stuff.
Yeah, tell me.
So I had a couple of friends who were like kind of similar to me. Even though they didn't always have the details right. Like one of them told the entire class that you got pregnant from oral sex, and I had to go and undo that work. But he believed it too.
So you were actually just
I was doing the work.
Right.
You know, I would take other kids in my class up to the computer lab, like, you know, back when that was the thing. And it was in an outside building. It was in its own building at my middle school. And I would take people there during lunch, and I would, do you know what I would show them? Does the name Blue Waffle ring a bell to you?
You were showing this at school?
Yes.
Jake,
how
did you get around the servers?
We didn't have them.
What?
So this was, how would you describe this? It was like a famous image in the, when were we young, 2000s, of like a really, really gnarly STI.
Can I confess? I have
you never
never
seen it?
No.
Live reaction to Blue Waffle
I don't want to
on the Lost Lore.
No!
This is the Lost Lore.
No,
I mean, this
let it lay, let it be lost.
Well, now when you Google Blue Waffle, it's just Blue Waffles. Let me see if I can find the original
Good.
Blue Waffle original image. Has this been scrubbed from the internet? I've got to find this. Hold on. I'm gonna take a little break.
This is a huge relief to me. I don't want to see it.
I think I may have found it. Let's see.
I'm so...
I forgot how bad it was.
Maybe I shouldn't see it. Maybe I shouldn't.
God, this takes me back to my middle school days.
2 other children. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Ew!
I was kind of a bad kid
You
in
were horrible.
but it was kind of, I felt it was my duty to share my knowledge with my peers. I felt
Right.
like I played a key role in my middle school.
You said that's not what fisting is. Actually. That's so fucking funny. I was definitely the kid being led to the computer lab. I was never doing any sort of leading.
Yeah, and you were like, I can't look.
But I remember one time a girl posted something on Facebook like, "Don't call this phone number." And I was
Did
like,
you call it?
I called it, and it immediately it's like moaning and the most insane sounds. And it was what you were saying about your mom coming to take the iPod, just like shaking to death. Like, they're coming, the cops are coming, I'm going to jail for calling the sex hotline. Like, that was one of those sobering moments where everything I had pretended to not know, I knew. In the moment, I knew what it was, and I knew how serious it was.
It is crazy, all of these, like, how you just come into this knowledge, this like big cultural knowledge, and like, because it is such a vast subject, and like there are so many,
and you learn more and more
as
like,
you get older.
Yeah. Like, once I moved to New York and I had gay friends and queer friends, I always say, like, to a straight
talk about
girl,
an education.
Talk about an education. If you are a straight woman and you're struggling with your sexuality, or you're struggling, like, have a bad sex life, call a gay guy. He will either inspire you, help you get creative, or horrify you to the degree that you're like, I'm cool with the life I have. I love my sex life, actually.
Did you ever do like chat roulette?
No.
Never?
No.
Or Omegle?
Sounds
like you were on Omegle.
with the video. Alone.
That's horrible.
Did you do Kick?
No, actually. I'm like the one gay guy who doesn't have this experience. I see it all the time. People talking to like older people on Kick. Thank God that never came across my path.
I think it did for
me. It did for you?
I was on Kick, I remember. I just hope that emo boy I was talking
Was
to
an emo boy.
was really an emo boy.
It was Justin Bieber.
I was talking to Zane.
I think that we grew up at the worst possible moment of the internet of like, I think we've come to understand how dangerous the internet is. And like my son, no phone, no TV, no screen. He doesn't even know a screen exists. Like I never have the TV on in front of him. I have no intention of letting him have a phone. And not to just be a jerk or like a hard ass, but like we understand because we grew up on the internet with no guardrails, none. Like there are things that I remember looking up in middle school that I'm not even willing to say on this podcast because, and it was like my friends were showing them to me, horrible things. And I think that we grew up in the worst moment of like our parents didn't know that there was that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and so they were like, oh, you're having fun on the computer with your friends? How sweet.
Yeah.
And Blue Waffle was up.
They were like, Club Penguin. No.
And I think that now we have that knowledge of like, there are so many creeps on the internet that I don't want my son to be part of that. But we were the unfortunate ones that would just turn loose. They were like, oh, I got you an iPod for Christmas that can access the entire internet when you're 11 years old. Like,
yikes.
Kind of not the best in hindsight.
No, for sure not. But I do think pros and cons, right? Like, definitely tons of cons.
But some pros, too.
Well, I would have never known other ways to use a toothbrush.
That's true. We weren't getting the education. That's why sex education in schools is important, ladies and gentlemen.
That's why.
We were not getting the education that we should have been receiving, so we sought it out ourselves.
Exactly. And at least we had the wherewithal to type it in a really professional way.
Exactly.
Into the Google search.
Penis Wikipedia. So not to harp on like the kind of where religion and sex meet each other, which I feel like is like kind of my experience with sex because my life was so religious for so long.
Right.
But I knew a lot of really religious people, like all the way through people into high school who clearly didn't know much about sex or like, or at least acted like they didn't, you know. But I have such a vivid memory of coming back from a show choir trip, mind you. First of all, talk about the horniest people in school. Band people, show choir people, freaks.
And I think we can say this because we are from the drama club.
Yes, exactly. We're one of the freaks.
We know, exactly.
Those were the people, like everyone in my drama club got mono one year from making out on the back of the show choir bus. Like these are the people who, you know, weirdly kind of get some in high school, despite doing the lamest activities you could possibly imagine.
What do you mean? We blow, we suck,
we have all the necessary skills.
We do it all.
But I remember it was maybe like a performance, like a regional performance, and I was in the back of a car getting a lift to my house, which I live a stone's throw from my high school.
Yeah.
Like I could have walked home, but two of the guys in show choir were being nice and they offered to like give me a ride, and I can like, my parents just lost a bunch of trees in the hurricane that hit North Carolina, and you can literally see my high school from my house, like my front porch now.
Yeah, it's so close.
Could have walked home. But they were like, oh, we'll just give you a lift. And I was like, great, sure. And we get in the car and, you know, we're chatting, like we're friends, and we're just kind of talking. And the conversation turns to sex, and I'm in the back seat. The two of them are in the front.
In this 30-second car ride, we get quickly to sex.
Oh, we're still in the parking lot. And I'm like, I'm kind of tired, a little hungry. I would be home by now if I had just walked. And I'm more of a passive participant in this particular conversation. I would say these are two of the most religious guys at my high school. We started to talk about kind of flirting with the subject of sex, but in the religious way of like talking about the struggle, you know, the temptation. And then the topic turned to masturbation. And we started talking about the struggle and the temptation and how the devil takes hold of you and pulls you to do that, and you just
pulls you to pull.
and then I am in the back of the car, and suddenly they're crying, talking to each other about their struggle with masturbation, how they know it's their cross to bear, you know, that they've tried to talk to God, they have this open dialogue with him, but they can't stop, and they know that it's wrong, and they know that God is watching, and after they just feel so sick and evil, and I'm in the back like,
I've never felt
I've never felt an ounce of
It
guilt.
feels good. You guys are doing it wrong.
Sometimes I do it twice in a row.
Still.
But it was just such a difference for me of like, I think that's when I realized.
Well, so how did it end? They cried? Did they pray?
Hugging, praying, crying, like being like, let me, oh Lord Jesus, my Father, like let us be strong. And by the way, two people I suspect very strongly of being very strong. So maybe those were where some of the guilt feelings were coming from. What were we watching? What was on the screen when you were struggling with your temptation? But great guys. But
awesome men. Seriously, the warriors for the kingdom.
That was one of the times when I remember thinking like, I want to be liberated. I want to not let this be a thing. And I think it is funny that it feels sometimes that we're going back to that kind of it being a taboo, bad, no word, rather than like let people just like read 50 Shades of Grey and put the hand down the pants.
And that's why I'm so happy very early on we're getting it out there that we're horrible, filthy, disgusting people. For me, that liberation came in New York. Like getting out of my small town and going somewhere where nobody knew me, and where you go to New York, you walk outside, you see everybody's genitals. It is there.
Their genitals.
And their genitals and their pronouns. They've got them both displayed. And I remember calling my Nana and being, because we went to acting school, and, you know, did you ever have where, like, in your classes, they would have you go see plays? Mm-hmm. I went and saw this play. It was, like, maybe my first month living in New York, and I just remember this man ends up naked on the stage, and he is literally, for lack of a better word, fucking a bale of hay. I called my grandmother.
What was your nickname?
I called my grandma and I told her about this. She thought I had been corrupted in these 30 days to such an extent
She's
that
like, we got to get you out of
she
there.
was like, you made that up. That's gross. Nobody would do that. And I'm like, lady, you're from the Panhandle of Florida. You mean to tell me you've never seen a man fuck a bale of hay? But that was like, I just remember being like, we are not in Kansas anymore. And that is really, my freshman year of college was when I really, probably the bulk of anything I'll ever learn about sex happened.
We had kind of a similar tie together of our kind of sheltered home lives and like kind of, finding the pieces of this puzzle separately. And then when we arrived in the city with that's so liberated, it was like, it really changed me. And like, I know it sounds like, based on everything I've said, it sounds like I was plenty liberated in school, but I really wasn't. Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, you were going to snake handle in church every week. Yeah.
It was getting to New York. I did feel like I was in Sex and the City. I was like, I'm an adult.
Right.
I can talk about sex at a party. No one's going to even laugh because it's a serious topic.
In fact, they might actually want to do it. And what about that?
And what about that, Nana?
She's like, please don't.
Just let it be a girl.
Just let it be a girl.
So when I was younger, I was kind of a goody-goody. I'm literally...
You're so back and forth. You're like, I'm the biggest badass of all time.
And I was such a goody-goody. But
literally devil and angel. You're so
I was.
both.
That's my whole life. And I still am.
Yeah.
Like, I am the devil and the
yeah,
angel.
if you're hanging out with a devilish person, you're an angel.
Yeah.
When you're hanging out with...
I'm the devil, baby.
The dynamic right here, I'm always good. He's always bad.
But I remember my grandpa, who definitely knew I was gay. Like the one person who clocked it day one. But he wanted to take us to Hooters once, which I hear is now closing. But he like explained it to us. My grandpa is the straight version of me. He's an enjoyer, let's say, of the more carnal human experience. And
he's a horn dog.
He's a horn dog. And I remember he wanted to take me and my older brother to Hooters. And I didn't know what Hooters was. And, we didn't live close to one. And so they drove us like an hour to go to this Hooters in Johnson City, Tennessee. And when I got there and I found out, he told us what it was. He was like, it's a bunch of ladies with big boobies and the boobies are out and they're going to serve you food. I was like, I'm not going in. And I didn't. I sat in the car and I played on my Game Boy.
I'm staying in the car. I'm playing my Game Boy.
And it was a respect thing. I mean it. I know
but
you think I'm being
still
silly.
Like, bring me out a 12.
Yeah, bring me some nuggies.
Meat.
I swear to God, it was a respect thing. I was like, I'm not looking disrespectfully at these beautiful women.
Yeah.
But then, as time wore on, I had to kind of come to terms more with people expecting me to want to look at those things.
Right.
Like, I definitely did not come to terms with my sexuality in high school. Like, I've talked to so many gay people who maybe didn't come out in high school, but at least accepted the fact that they were gay in high school. Not me, baby.
Oh, I guess I thought that you at least privately had some level of acceptance. No?
None. I remember forever I was like, puberty will clear this up. Like the hormones, they're probably just out of balance. It'll even themselves out.
Did you question it? Like, would you pray the gay away type of thing?
Every so often I would pray about it, yeah. But I had confidence that it would sort itself out. And that I would be straight eventually. And that it was a puberty thing and that my hormones were just crazy and like it would get better. But this whole time, the only, things I'm looking up online are naked men. And there's a huge cognitive dissonance between those two things. And when I got to college, it was kind of like time to put your money where your mouth is, because I was a smart gay person would maybe not accept it about themselves, but then not seek out a girlfriend. Not me. I was like, time to find a girlfriend. But in high school, that was fine. Nobody's expecting you necessarily, especially in my community, to have sex in high school. Like, did they probably want it? Look at the material. But did I feel pressured to supply it? Not necessarily. I was like,
you're a kid.
My purity ring.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I had an easy kind of stopping point. Not at NYU. You don't tell your NYU girlfriend that you need to leave space for Jesus, who goes to the Tisch School of the Arts.
Right.
And
she's like, dye my pubes.
And it took me back to the video. And I remember I did date. You remember.
Yes,
I dated
of
like
course.
seriously in college women.
Yes.
And still my best friends. Like I love them. They're just like I'm so close with them.
I know.
Some multiple girls I dated were in my wedding party.
Yeah.
And at first I tried to be like, it's God, and then I was like, people are gonna think you're a fucking weirdo if you keep up the God shit here. And so I was like, gotta move on to something else. And I literally nightly would be like, my head, my stomach. They were like, does he have cancer? Like, he has all these crazy symptoms that just like prevent him from having sex. And weirdly, it only came on when we were alone in the bedroom. And I was like, I gotta pull it
When
together.
you guys went to Lady Gaga disco night, I was fine.
He was dancing.
And then we get home and I'm,
My tummy.
again. I've loved getting to know more about how disgusting I assumed you were. It is
Finding out you were 100% correct.
I was 100% correct. It's my favorite thing to find out that I am 100% correct. So thanks for that.
You told me the craziest story I've ever heard tonight. That's probably the craziest story you've ever told me.
If you think that's the craziest story, I think that one about the kid crying and sobbing over his piton pools in the car is a little more extreme. But
hope they're doing well.
I hope everybody's doing really well, privately and otherwise. Until next time, thank you for tuning into The Lost Lore. We will see you next time. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please consider subscribing to our Patreon. We have a ton of exclusive content over there, including the full-length video episodes of our podcast.
Patreon is definitely the best way to go. It is the most likely place where we will be able to read your comments, interact with you, and maybe ask you some questions about your lost lore.
Thanks for tuning in. We will see you on Patreon.